guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Literary Lizzie, and today I'm going to be doing a video where I share with you guys all the books that I've read this year in 2017. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first book that I read this year was The Book Thief by Marcus Suzak. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. The next book that I read was Crystal Storm by Morgan Rhodes. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read Fairy Keeper by Amy Burse. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read School of Deaths by Christopher Manino. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Lonely Hearts Hotel by Heather O'Neill. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Girl Before by J.P. Delany. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Fallen by Lauren Kate. I gave this book 2 stars. Then I read Ever the Hunted by Erin Summerhill. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read The Well Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Crown of Cinders by Rebecca Attington. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Updrift by Aaron Stevens. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read The Valiant by Leslie Livingston. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Roseblood by A.G. Howard. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Sword of Death by Christopher Manino. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Breakwater by Aaron Stevens. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling. I gave this book 5 stars. The Alchemist of the Loom by Elisa Kova. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Burning Glass by Catherine Purdy. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I gave this book 5 stars. So I skipped over a few books. I read A Game of Thrones by GEORGERR. I gave this book 5 stars. And then I read The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. I gave this book 4 stars. And then I read The Novice by Taran Mataru. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read A Court of Rings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Want by Cindy Pond. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read The Hidden Oracle by Rick Riordan. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Dark Prophecy by Rick Riordan. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Inquisition by Taran Matharu. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Battle Mage by Taran Matharu. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read When Dimple Met Rishi by Sadia Menon. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Gilded Cage by Vic James. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Intelligence in Animals by Michael Bright. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read Night by ELIE WIESEL. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Gemna by Amy Kaufman. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read All the Single Ladies by Rebecca Traister. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. I gave this book 5 stars. The Last Musician by Lisa Maxwell. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maureen Gu. I gave this book 2 stars. Then I read The Disappearances by Emily Bain Murphy. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read Lost in the Clouds by R.K. Gold. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read A Feast of Crows by George R.R. Martin. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Winter Song by S.J. Jones. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. I gave this book 2 stars. Then I read A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read A Perilous Undertaking by Deanna Raybourn. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read Wonder Woman, Warbringer by Leigh Bardugo. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Empire of Storms by Sarah J Maas. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Tower of Dawn by Sarah J Maas. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J Maas. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding by Alexandra Bracken. I gave this 2 stars. Then I read Astrophysics for People in a Hurry by Neil deGrasse Tyson. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read A Dance with Dragons by George R.R. Martin. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read Brynwood by R.K. Gold. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. I gave this book 3.5 stars. Then I read A Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read An Entrapment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Sleeping Beauties by Stephen King. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read The Witches of the Glass Castle by Gabriella Lepore. I gave this book 2.5 stars. Then I read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read House of Furies by Madeline Rooks. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Tales of Beetle the Bard by J.K. Rowling. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read The Ship of the Dead by Rick Riordan. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Stand by Stephen King. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Renegades by Marissa Mayer. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Glass Sparrow by Lauren DeStefano. I gave this book 2 stars. Then I read Artemis by Andy Weir. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read This Mortal Coil by Emily Savada. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Dare, The New Way to End Anxiety and Stop Panic Attacks Fast by Barry McDonough. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Without Merit by Colleen Hoover. I gave this book 1 star. Then I read Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I gave this book 5 stars. Okay, so those are all the books that I've read this year. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think, yeah, I read 100 books this year, so that was pretty crazy. So I hope you guys had a great reading year, because I definitely did. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!